Welcome to the Gravel Cycling Australia podcast. Gravel cycling in Australia is booming. From racing to bikepacking to simply getting off the beaten track and exploring the backroads and trails of our outstanding natural landscapes. This accessible subculture is all about community, adventure, and discovering or rediscovering the joy of life on two wheels. Join us as we celebrate Australia's gravel cycling scene and discover the locations, explore the events, and meet the people at the heart of the sport. G'day and welcome to episode 1 of this brand new podcast dedicated to exploring and celebrating gravel cycling in Australia. My name is Tristan Reid, I'm your host, and I'm very grateful to have your company here today. Thanks for tuning in. So what are we trying to do here? Well, this podcast is really about exploring and diving deep into what gravel cycling in Australia is. Who are the movers and shakers? Where are the best places to ride? What are the best events to get involved with? And how can you start your journey and then continue your journey gravel cycling in Australia? Before we dive too deep into that, I just want to introduce myself. So who am I? As I said, my name's Tristan. I'm a gravel cycling enthusiast. I'm based in Melbourne, down in the state of Victoria. I'm a pretty average kind of cyclist. I'm a father of 2 young kids. I'm a full-time worker. I've got a full-time job. And I guess I'm a fairly recent but very passionate member of the gravel cycling scene. So I guess my history in cycling, I loved cycling as a teenager. It's what I used to do on school holidays. If I had the chance, I'd get out on my dodgy little mountain bike and get onto the bike paths of Melbourne and maybe do a loop around Capital City Trail or get out on the main Yarra Trail. And that was sort of a real opportunity for me to get out of the house, develop a bit of my own independence. And I think that's the way a lot of people come to cycling in the first place. And that's what it was for me when I was a teenager. But then, of course, you get a bit older and life gets in the way and you head off to uni and there's parties and the bike sort of fell behind for me. And that's the way it stayed for a long time. I graduated from uni. I got my first job. And I didn't really feel like I had time for a bike in my life. You know, I always liked the idea of riding and I'd go for the very occasional ride, but it was something that I didn't feel I could fit into my life. So how did I rediscover the bike? Well, I was sitting on the couch watching Egan Bernal power up the Izoard in the 2019 Tour de France, and I was getting bombarded with ads from Zwift. Here was an opportunity for me to potentially ride my bike. And I didn't really have the excuse that I didn't have time because I could do it as I sat there and watched the Tour de France at 11 o'clock at night. And that was quite appealing to me. So I started getting the itch. I was looking down at my rapidly developing dad bod and I thought, you know what? Now's the time. So I got out there, I got on Gumtree and I found myself a second-hand Generation 1 Cyclops hammer. I managed to scrape together a bike that I got for free from my brother-in-law who'd sort of purchased it with the grand ideals of becoming a cyclist but never really got into it. It was far too small for me. But you know what? It did the trick. And I set it up and I got Zwifting in my front room in my house in Melbourne. And it didn't take long. And I was absolutely hooked. Cycling became really my passion, and I spent all my spare time, thinking about the bike, thinking about riding, where could I go, what sort of bike did I want to actually invest in. So I fell pretty hard, pretty quick, and that was back in September of 2019. I fell in love with the sport, I fell in love with the tech, and I started riding outside more after getting on Zwift. I started getting back on the trails. I headed down to Yarra Boulevard for the first time on this dodgy old aluminium race bike that was a few sizes too small for me. And I just remember thinking like, wow, some of these guys are pretty quick. And, everyone had the gear and here was me with my little old aluminium bike. But I kept heading out. The more I got into cycling and really diving into this sport, I came across gravel cycling. And this is something that really appealed to me straight away. I fell in love with the idea of gravel, the adventure aspects of it, the exploration, the fact it wasn't fully focused on going fast and racing and being the best. I saw I might have the ability to ride around some really exciting roads and locations that were close to my heart. I've been a regular visitor to the Surf Coast area and the Otways. I started my life out there as a young kid, moved to Melbourne early on, but regularly visit the area still. And I saw an opportunity to really reconnect with that area through the bike and get out there and explore this really beautiful part of the world, which I didn't think was necessarily possible before. To be honest, I really, the idea of getting away from the traffic was really appealing as well. You know, no one likes getting passed close by car, and that was something that I experienced early on in my time on my little road bike that I had. And the idea of getting away from the traffic and really getting out into nature was something that really appealed to me. And I think it's something that draws a lot of people to gravel cycling. So the next step was what bike was I going to buy, and this was a really fun process. You know, it's a big purchase, and you got lots of options. So I again dove deep into the reviews, got onto YouTube, and I eventually decided and picked up a Canyon Grail AL7, and that was despite a fairly vanilla of a review from Cycling Tips' former editor-in-chief Kaylee Fretz. Get on YouTube, you can see his bemused and not particularly impressed review. But I decided to persist with it anyway based on some other stuff that I'd read. He was a bike that promised to handle well like a road bike. I wanted it to be fun. I wanted it to feel fast. I wanted it to handle similar to a road bike, but I wanted it to have a bit more capability. And this is a bike that promised that at a really good value as well, which was obviously important to me. So the bike arrived in April of 2021, so it's been nearly 2 years, and really I jumped on there and I have not looked back. I've been back on the bike paths of Melbourne, loving the gravel through Heidelberg. The Main Yarra Trail and the Mullum Trail are really my home now. I love those paths. So I started getting out early in the morning before my kids woke up, heading out at 5:30 in the morning, and getting onto the bike paths. And that was how my journey started in gravel cycling. Urban, not maybe the wide open gravel roads and the wilderness that people come to expect. But that was where it started for me, and that was enough. I loved it. It opened up a whole new world to me, and really combination of that freedom. It was really like being that teenage kid again, heading out on his school holidays and trying to get out there and connect with myself again. It was a form of rolling meditation. I know a lot of people have explained cycling like that, but it certainly was that for me. And as soon as I started riding my bike, my life changed, and it will never be the same again. The things that cycling has done for me over the last couple of years, the mental health implications, I feel much more relaxed, much less anxious, much more capable of dealing with the everyday stresses that come in life. And I attribute all of that to the bike. From a physical point of view, I've never been fitter, never been healthier. It's really changed my future, falling in love with the bike. And I feel now that I will have a very healthy life. And that's not something I could have said, 3 or 4 years ago. So as I said, I started heading out early in the morning on these rides, and I was posting on Strava as everyone does, because if it's not on Strava, it didn't happen. And I started following some people that I knew on Strava. And I started following a friend of mine who I went to school with. Back in 2008, we graduated together from high school, and he had gone on to very big and wonderful things in his career, and we'd sort of lost touch, which was a shame. But I sort of noticed that he was living in a neighbouring suburb to me and heading out at 5:30 in the morning like I was, and doing some pretty cool rides out through Warrandyte and Park Orchards and that area of Melbourne. So I got in touch with him, and I reached out and said, hey, do you want to go for a ride? And Chris, my mate, he said, you know what, that sounds awesome. And we started meeting up in Blackburn at 5:30 in the morning, 2 dads with young kids, and we ride our bike. And we're still doing it now. It's been over a year. We've been doing this together. And, I probably have a closer relationship with him now than I ever have before. I hadn't spoken to him much at all for 10 years. And now he's probably one of my best mates. And the things that we do together on a bike is, we we really do share this love of cycling. He's a much better bike handler than me. He pushes the limits sometimes on the single track and the gravel trails out at Wonga Park. It's been my downfall as recently as just before Christmas. But it's great to have that person who you can ride with, and that's Chris for me. So cycling has not only brought me a lot of other benefits to my life, it's also helped me reconnect with a friend. As I said, I've got a close connection to the Surf Coast area, down around Deans Marsh and Bamborough in the foothills of the Otway Ranges. Beautiful country down there. It's stunning. You get the coastal landscape and then up into the hills, and the gravel riding around there is amazing. I've been really enjoyed exploring parts of that landscape, which has always felt like home to me, but now I feel like I really understand it better from the opportunity I've had to ride my bike around there. So that's been a real highlight of my gravel cycling so far. I entered a race last year for the first time. I did the Great Otway Gravel Grind, and we're going to hear from the organisers of the Great Otway Gravel Grind in one of our earlier episodes, and we can dive a bit deeper into that event. But it was a really great experience. Went out far too hard and cracked with 60Ks still to go, but you know what? I had a great day out on the bike, met some great people, and it was a great opportunity to really connect with this gravel racing community or the gravel riding community, and that's another thing that's been a real highlight of my time riding a bike. As I said, I've met Chris, but what I've really discovered is this amazing community of people who are really passionate about this sport, and they're not all racers. We're talking about people from 10 years of age to 70 years of age, and they just love riding their bike, and they love doing it in this environment that's inclusive. It's not necessarily overly competitive, even in a race scenario. It's something that people can do together and share, and that's what I've really come to love about gravel cycling. And I've seen that through the Great Otway Gravel Grind, and out on my rides, I've seen great groups of people enjoying this sport together, no matter their differences in abilities or, their differences in experience or, what bike you ride, just ride what you've got. And that's been a really, really encouraging thing to see, and a really great part of the gravel cycling scene. I think we all know that the road cycling, I love riding on the road. I think it's great fun. You go fast, it's wonderful. But if we think about road cycling culture, it can be intimidating for new riders. I certainly still feel that when I see big bunches of really fast guys going past, and they've all got the kit. They're all looking pro. I feel like the gravel cycling scene is, it's just a much more welcoming, non-judgmental environment to get new people, especially onto bikes. A really inviting culture. And that's another reason that I really love gravel cycling. So hopefully that story of where I've come from helps you understand why we're here. The reason is really to celebrate what I love about gravel cycling, celebrate the community, celebrate the events, and celebrate the culture that makes gravel cycling in Australia a really, really exciting place to be. So what's coming up on the pod? Coming up, we've got interviews with race organisers. As I said, we've got the Great Otway Gravel Grind guys coming on for our first episode. I had a really great chat with them. They've got some really great insights into gravel cycling events. We're going to take a deep dive into some of the best locations for gravel cycling in Australia and talk to some of the people who are at the heart of the gravel cycling scene in their particular locations around the country. I love a bit of bike tech, so we're going to do some deep dives into some tech, and we're really going to meet the people and the clubs and the groups that are really help driving the sport forward. What I ultimately would love to do is to build and connect a community of really passionate people around this podcast, something that we can all share, where we can come together and share our passion for the sport. So thanks again for giving us a listen. I really appreciate you coming along. Please give us a subscribe to make sure you're getting direct access to all our new episodes as they drop. We're hoping to start out with an episode every couple of weeks. You can also follow us on Instagram at the Gravel Cycling Oz Podcast, or just search for the Gravel Cycling Australia Podcast. Hoping to get some good content up there as well to keep you all informed about what we're up to. So once again, thanks for joining us. Thanks for giving us a shot. Hoping to build this as a bit of a project together with you as the community. So if you've got any ideas, please drop us a line on Instagram, or our email address is thegravelcyclingpodcast, all one word, at gmail.com. That's thegravelcyclingpodcast at gmail.com. So that's all for today. We'll catch you next time. Thanks very much for tuning in, and excited to go on this journey with you. Thanks very much. Bye.